のに軌道が変わった。
This anime
切
really
ってしまえば
well.
威力は落ち。三の型流々舞。玉代さん。 バカ！蹴ってはダメよ。
すぐ足は治りますからね。
横水車。
Damn, he's feeling it. What's going on? My name's Seth. This is Chevy. We just watched episode 9 of Demon Slayer. Quick recap. We were treated to some fantastic animation in this episode. Pretty much the two demons that seem to be more powerful than typical demons, sent by, I think his name, I think I'm gonna get it, Kibutsuji. We'll figure it out. We'll get it. The master demon guy, he has sent two people after Tanjiro and Nezuko, and Yushiro and Tamayo. I know their names. And they have found them in a like illusion house. It's hidden visually.
Yeah, the male demon, his ability is to be able to hide. That's why he was able to later do the same. So
yeah, which makes sense. So we get an altercation. They show up to take out Tamayo and Tanjiro, and we are introduced to up to, it seems, a 6-armed girl who's able to throw balls and redirect them in the air, and a dude who not only can track using arrows, but also use arrows as a weapon, which has been very interesting to see.
the arrows is the only reason you're seeing him is because that thing that was put on Tanjiro. He can see the it's basically the force, because the guy's able to just manipulate. Essentially, force is the only thing I can think of. So.
Which is interesting because his hands have the arrow eyes on them. So fight breaks out. Yushiro gets his head fucking knocked off. That was a little shocking for a second when I first saw that, and then it clicked in my brain. I was like, "Wait, he's a demon. He should be fine." But it was a good little shock factor. I wasn't expecting that to just kind of happen. Really cool too to watch the ball get thrown and then redirect in the air, showing off that is a possibility, and also how hard those balls hit because they're going through walls, and it took his head clean off.
Especially because they're bouncy balls.
Yeah. And then multiple times too during the fight where the balls are like nicking people, knocking the chunks of their heads off and shit, which is really fucking crazy to see. During this time, Tanjiro's pretty much playing defense, trying to figure out what to do in this situation. As at first, 2-armed girl turns to 6-armed girl, which grossed me out. As soon as her arms start bubbling and her sides, I was like, those are arms, which means more balls. So he is essentially doing some, just like, the animation in this episode was really fucking good. Out of all the episodes I've seen so far, the choreography and the animation on this has been the most top-notch, and it's already been impressive. Movie quality stuff is really fucking good looking. We'll talk about that. So he's trying to figure out how to fight against the balls. He's trying to be defensive, stab the balls, all that kind of stuff. And he is given I don't remember what the name of it, but it's essentially a totem to give him,
I believe,
a charm to give him sight and be able to see the directions of the ball's momentum being controlled by her, and later the ability that the arrow eye guy is using, giving, I guess, some help to survive them. He doesn't really do a whole lot in this episode in terms of fighting until the very end. And yeah, Nezuko joins the fight. She just jumps into a tree and starts fucking doing what she does best and kicking at Arrow Guy while he's just getting pissed off about everybody splattering him with dust. The fight goes into the yard. It gets really fucking crazy. Yushiro joins the fight, showing that not only can he essentially hide things in plain sight, he can also hide himself in plain sight. Runs up, does some very karate-esque strikes. And I mean, the whole episode, there's a lot of dialogue going on, a lot of things being explained, but we get reintroduced to Tanjiro needs to collect blood samples. This becomes a objective during the fight as well. But really, the episode's just a really badass fight. That's the whole episode for the most part. All the while, Tanjiro's trying to strategize in a fight that is challenging him in a way that hasn't happened yet, with heat-seeking balls and a dude who's just like throwing him all over the fucking place. It's interesting to see him use a move to land, because I was like, can he land from that high? But they covered that. And then we're met with a finale where Tanjiro is able to use an ability and finally get a strike in on the guy.
Yeah, he chains two together.
Yeah.
So,
which was very cool to see. A lot of really interesting stuff too with the arrows. It's something I haven't really seen in an anime. Watching a guy like dodging around, just like plain and simple red arrows flying all over the place.
Yeah,
it's really interesting to watch. But again, I gotta just kind of throw it out there. The animation on this episode was really fucking good. I was like constantly like, that looked really good. And then another thing happens, like, that looked really good.
Yeah.
Nezuko fucking doing all these like cartwheels and shit out in the distance while balls are flying. I'm like, that looked really good. Tanjiro in the building doing all this dodging and shit. That looked really good. There's a scene where he's like running and then the camera, and it's all, well, I guess there's probably some 3D in there, but like it's 2D perspective animation. And he like runs up the side of the house and stuff. And it's just like really fucking good. There's already been really good animation. This one has really good animation. So if it's any hint on what to expect later, I'm stoked to watch fight scenes in this anime. On top of the story is interesting, and the characters are definitely endearing enough. Did I miss any major beats? I'm sure I missed a lot of the small details, but we are in an episode that's really based around a fight, and there will be a continuation of it in the next episode where we'll probably get more story from it. 12 Demon Moons. Demon Moons, is that what's called?
yeah, they personally answer to what's his face, the main demon guy.
Kibutsuji.
Yeah,
That's his name, Kibutsuji. So we now have this almost sounding like a syndicate name for a group of, I'm assuming, 12 high-tiered demons. This being 2 of them, so I assume there's 10 others. So there's some info that we've got out of this episode. And yeah, really just seeing how people operate in combat. Nezuko lost a leg. She went to kick a ball.
yes,
She learned to not do that. The leg went right off, just like Yushiro's head. And
also shows an emphasis of because she's not eating human flesh, her recovery speed is really slow.
I was going to add that it was explained that her recovery was slow and she was injected with something to help her with the healing process, because you need her back in the fight. And then also another thing kind of ends with is the plan is now Tanjiro's going to take on the Arrow Eye guy, and we saw that part, but then it was also said that Nezuko, Ishiro, and Tamayo were going to take on the 6-armed chick, which I'm assuming we'll see more of that in the next episode. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode a lot. It wasn't the strongest story episode, but it's not supposed to be. I mean, it's an anime. There's going to be episodes for story. There's going to be episodes for getting to know the characters and having fun and filler, and there's going to be action episodes. This is an action episode, and I really enjoyed the combat. the animation that these guys like, a bunch of animes have really cool fight scenes. That's whatever.
Yeah.
But the animation that they're doing here is like really fucking top notch shit. Like I'm looking at them like there's way more frames here. Like it's so smooth looking. They're really taking their time with this. And of course some animes, you know, the big episodes they're gonna put more work into or whatever.
Oh,
but
yeah, for sure.
But this one just seems to be like every like 2-3 episodes there's like animation. I'm like, well, that was really fucking crazy looking.
Yeah, UFO Tables definitely has a reputation at this point.
Yeah, well, I'm seeing it because it could have been animated not as good, and I still would have thought the combat was cool. I like all the principles of what's happening here. But
Yeah, so hats off to the manga artist.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
That's what
their ideas.
That's what I keep thinking when I watch this. I'm like, it didn't look like that in the fucking manga. Like it did look like that, but like obviously it's not animated.
Right.
So like I'm like they're really like putting their own fucking stamp on this.
Bring it to life.
Yeah, which is great. If I created a manga and these guys animated it, I'd be like, holy shit, you guys are
I'm pretty sure they were pretty thrilled.
making this look great. Yeah, so pretty much kind of gushed as I was as I was explaining the episode, but pretty much the key factor here and what I got from this episode is combat's dope, animation's dope. It was interesting to be reminded that Yushiro and Tamayo are demons, and they can take critical hits and survive. So can Nezuko, but she is, I guess, throttled by her not wanting to live the demon lifestyle. And demons are not, at least it seems to be constant through the show so far, but demons seem to not be all that meets the eye with the 6-armed girl. As soon as her arms started sprouting out, I was like, oh, okay. So
abilities are wild.
they can just get kind of crazy if they want to. Especially just throwing balls around. So, yeah, really cool episode. I'm really wanting to watch the next episode so I know what the hell happens, which I guess is kind of the point of these kind of cliffhangers. Also, one little note on the show in general so far. I like their after credits little like almost like tidbits. They're not like they're jokey and fun or whatever, but they also kind of give insight to what's coming in the next episode, but also maybe some stuff behind the scenes in the lore.
Yeah.
They kind of throw out there just for fun. At first I thought they were like kidding, but like there was a past episode where he said something about the character and then it was a thing. I was like, oh, they're just like, this is just kind of like extra stuff. So it's kind of an interesting way they do it, and I like the way that every one is within the same theme.
Yeah.
It's always the same kind of format, but still fun and refreshing after watching a pretty dark anime. It's not the darkest, but I mean, like it's got some pretty gnarly stuff going on. So
yeah, I mean they get pretty heavy sometimes. They do a good job of not going too overboard because they'd have to up the rating, obviously. But I think they're not afraid to show gore at least, and like depict some pretty violent scenes.
Well, the last episode was pretty gross.
And well, I mean, the first episode, his whole family gets killed, and you just see their dead bodies everywhere. So, I mean,
And a reoccurring thing in this episode, we're seeing more of Nezuko's humanity, seeing people as family, or at least being reminded of family, and bring out that natural protector in her. Just reminded me of that when you're talking about the first episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Takeaways? Obviously, you've seen the show, but
and eventually we'll get to a point where I'll be able to start reacting to stuff too. But right now we're kind of introducing this to Seth. So
that's me.
I love this episode. I think it is if the last, the person who had their personality split into 3 and then like was able to do that like effectively dimensional swamp area they could do was like a nice like introduction to like how weird the powers can get. That also felt kind of grounded because it could be kind of like almost magic-y. This is like super imaginative, like with the essentially the kid's toy being so heavy that could just rip off and splatter heads and stuff, and then a person who can just like manipulate direction essentially. So and knowing where it goes too, the imagination just keeps going. So it's really neat. it's one thing I really appreciate about this anime in general is the demons. Besides the fact that the only thing that kills them is having their heads just chopped off by a specific type of metal, they don't seem to like be bothered by taking damage, so they'll just go in and fight, and that puts a huge pressure on like humans to fight these things because they have to be worried about taking damage and stuff.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing in this fight is there's multiple players in the fight that are all able to take damage, but Tanjiro's out here just having to rely on what he's learned.
Yeah.
So.
And the episode really kind of hones in where they remind him multiple times, stop worrying about us. We're demons. The damage doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in the beginning of the fight, it didn't really click for me until, I guess Yoshiro's head already got knocked off, but she was saying, like, don't worry about us. And at that point, I'm like, oh, yeah, they can just heal. They'll be fine. Yeah. So it makes complete sense. It's a really interesting contrast to have, in like a lot of animes, you have like, I guess, power levels. But in this, it's interesting that like there's humans and there's people who, can't not be killed, but have different parameters they have to follow. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting contrast.
And obviously the sun is their enemy too. So
yeah. Which we'll see if that comes into play or not later.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, really, really good episode. Do you have more to say on it?
No.
All right. Well, let us know in the comments what you think of episode 9 of Demon Slayer. And general thoughts. No spoilers, please. I'm watching for the first time. Join us. We will be watching the next couple episodes and having our reviews out. And I've been Seth. This has been Chevy. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episode.